What can we learn from quotes from famous photographers? For me, they are creativity boosts and they inspire me quite a bit. Let's talk about a few of my favorites. Hi, it's Peter here, and let's get right into the business. Photo quotes from famous photographers are, or maybe not so famous, can be a good way of learning about photography. They are usually about photography itself and very seldom about gear or gear related or technical related stuff. And I think that's why those are really valuable, because we think gear way too much. But let's start with the first one. It's from Ansel Adams. There are always two people in every picture, the photographer and the viewer. I've talked about similar stuff before. Every photograph is unique in a way. Some photographs more than others. And when you go out somewhere and take a photograph, let's say a famous tourist site or something like that, your photograph is a unique photograph because no one was standing at that particular place at that particular moment. And when I'm saying about the place, the exact spot where you were standing. And there are some elements in the photograph anyways that nobody else captured. But just a tourist shot, it might be more of a memory for you, and it might not resonate with others because there are millions of photographs of famous buildings, for example. But if you add something to it and wait for something to happen, it becomes even more unique, and that image might resonate. If there is a happening in front of a building that kind of relates to the building, or there is some color contrast or some interesting things happening that is a photograph itself, the whole situation becomes totally different. But then we have a story for that image. Could be anything, it doesn't matter the story, but there might be a story. Something happened in front of a building that resonates with us. But the viewer resonates with a different way because the viewer has had a different life than you have. And that's why there's always the photographer and the viewer, because both of them or us might have a totally different story to the image. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing, because we cannot decide as photographers what the viewer should think. I think that's a wrong way if we make a photograph and want everybody to resonate the same way or think about the thing the same way. I think as a photographer, especially if you're doing documentary or photojournalism, I think you should just be an observer and let the viewer decide how they think about the matter. And the same thing goes with every photography, except of course those ones that are only for your memory. And when I'm talking about these interpretations of these quotes, I'm not saying that my interpretation is the right one. It's the same thing with photographs. We define and learn and think about the photograph differently. And the same thing about these quotes. These are my interpretation of the quotes, and what I'm interpreting, it might not be even the same thing as the photographer who said it was interpreting that, or what they meant. And that's the beauty of photography, because we all have different approaches and different way of seeing the photograph and think differently. And I think that's the biggest beauty of photograph. But let's go to the next one. And that is from Edward Weston. And it goes, "If I have any message worth giving to a beginner, it is that there are no shortcuts in photography." And I like this one a lot. Too many of us think that photography is easy and that just get the best camera your money can buy and you'll be a good photographer. It's nothing more than someone buying a guitar. They are not musicians necessarily. They are owner of a guitar. And the same applies to a camera. If you buy a camera, you're just an owner of a camera. To become a photographer is to learn the basics. It's easier to start with the basics: aperture, shutter speed, ISO, composition, and all that. That is something that you build on. If you have that kind of like in your mind, and you don't have to think about those three things at all. They just come because you know them so well. Then you can concentrate on the composition, and when that is kind of like something that just happens in your mind and you know how to do it, then you can start to concentrate on the actual thing that happens inside the frame. The feeling, the mood, and all that, because all the technical stuff and all the artistic side of composition is, you just know it. It just comes naturally out. Then you can really start learning about photography. But skipping the basics will not help you, because I always wondered why people ask. They have something to photograph, and then they go to a forum or a Facebook group and ask, what settings should I use? And that's always a really sad question, because that is the wrong question, because we don't know what the settings are. It depends on the light, the amount of light, and what the photograph wants to tell. A lot of depth of field or not, and all that. Freezing the motion or not. We don't know that. That's something that the photographer should decide and should know how to freeze a motion, how to make motion blur, how to achieve depth of field, and how to achieve narrow depth of field. It all depends on the story. So you can't really answer what setting should I use. It's a wrong question. There are very few wrong questions, but that one is definitely one. So learn the basics, and it's just something that you have to do if you want to be better. And then let's go to the third one, which is from Alex Soth. Photography for me is a lot like web surfing in real life. And I think this is a very important quote, because photography is exploring the world. When we have our eyes open, walking around, it doesn't matter if it's your hometown, you're traveling, keep your mind open and learn about what you see. Be alert, then you will find a lot of photographs and you will learn. It's the same thing when you're browsing to the web. You see something and you learn, and then you want to learn more. And that's exactly how it is with photography. If you see something interesting, you want to see even more interesting things when you photograph and grab that, and you want to get the better photograph from the last one. So you are as good as your last photograph is another way of kind of saying this. It's a bit off topic if we think about this particular quote, but I think it is a good idea that it's all about exploring and finding new things and recording them with your camera. And actually, when you're recording with your camera and you have your mind open, you're recording it with your head. Your mind is the most important gear you have when you're photographing. And then also, I think this applies also to that we all have certain way of photographing. Changing that and trying new things, new ways, new subjects, new ways of making the composition will also be something that will make us better, and we will learn new things and with open eyes and find something or some new perspective to our photography. It makes photography a lot more interesting. And then we have a fourth one, which is from Bruce Gilden. If you can smell the street by looking at the photo, it is a great street photograph. And I think this applies to many things. If you can add your own emotions, the moods and the feelings that you are feeling when you're making a photograph. It doesn't matter if it's street or if it's landscape. The feeling can be, or the smell of the photograph can be also something else than Bruce Gilden here meant, because he is known for his pretty rough looking photographs that for example, his portraits, he goes very close. You can really feel the person right in your face, and in a way you can smell it. And the same thing goes with any genre, that you kind of like have to give yourself, and you have the mood so that it can be interpreted by the viewer, or it raises some emotions in the viewer. Like I said, it doesn't have to be the same story or the same feeling. I think the rough style of Bruce Gilden, you should really take a look at his images and see what he meant, because it is very impressive way of making images. And yes, there's one more thing about that when we talk about Bruce Gilden and this quote, is that you have to feel the images with your gut, especially his type of street photography. You have to have a gut feeling, and you have to kind of like your stomach is turning around when you see some of the images. You really have a strong feeling. And I think that's something that his photographs really does. And I kind of like his style. But let's go to the next one. And before we go to the next one, I will have an extra quote, of course, like I always do. This one is from Gary Winogrand. No one moment is more important. Any moment can be something. And this is a very important thing, because we always think, and I do the same thing, that we always think that we should go to some exotic place to get some great photographs. But that's not the only way to get great photographs. It is in many ways, at least for me. The thing is that I've photographed in Helsinki so many times that sometimes it does not inspire me that much. But traveling, you see new things, it's an inspiration. But I think Gary Winograd has a very good thing that he reminds us that we can get some photographs close by our house, close by in our hometown, because a great photographer can change something ordinary into extraordinary with the moment he or she clicks the shutter, and the composition and everything like that. But then also, there might be a great moment, but if you're not a great photographer, you will turn a great moment into a average moment. When we go out, let's try to look at our hometown with a fresh eye. That's something that I really need to learn. Because there are a lot of, let's say, little street arts here in Helsinki, but I haven't really gotten that good images of them compared to the ones that I got on my travels. And then one good example of this is, which I almost forgot to say, is the Czech photographer Josef Surek. He made great images inside his house, out to the window, to his garden. You might check out Josef Surek's images, and I think that's a good example of making something extraordinary out of the ordinary, everyday scene. He's a good example of that. And then the extra quote by Robert Frank. I love mistakes in photography. Sometimes they work. Yeah, this is something that I've talked many times before, that if you make a perfect image, perfect composition, everything is perfect, it's most likely pretty boring image. It's just, people just browse through. And now that is the biggest problem in our concentration span. It's getting shorter and shorter, and some even say that humans have a shorter concentration span than goldfish. I don't know if that's true, but we're pretty close, which is a really sad thing, because we can't concentrate long enough anymore to learn new things. And the same thing with photographs. If we just see a perfect photograph, we just, browse through the Instagram and don't really feel anything. But if there is something extraordinary in the image that we find to be slightly like a mistake, then that might stop us. At least I believe so. And having something intentionally wrong in the image, when I'm talking about the rules, breaking the rules in the right way. And then of course there's the question, what is the right way? That is, some know, some don't. It's really hard to explain why there should be something distracting in the image. But it cannot be too distracting so that the whole message doesn't, go away. This is hard, but I probably will talk about this a bit more in future videos, because I think that is a really interesting topic, in my opinion. And like I said in the beginning, these interpretations and ideas of what I think what these quotes meant is just my idea, and they can be totally different what they really meant. And I don't know, how do you see these quotes? Are they resonating with you? Are these so-called creative boost to you? Are you inspired by these? And if you have any quotes that you like that have inspired you, please tell us in the comments down below. And sometimes we are in a creative rut, and there is a video about that, so you might want to watch that if you are stuck. But hey, thanks for watching, and bye for now.